off guard to a large degree. So I suppose we like everybody else, had to react and make decisions pretty quickly. And I suppose from the Supermax point of view, it was always going to be very difficult to supervise and ensure social distancing was taking place. So we decided to close down, even though we didn't have to close down, because people were still allowed to use takeaway facilities, etc. But it would have been very hard to police and enforce kind of social distancing when people are in the habit of sitting down, etc. Then it's difficult to when that stops to enforce. We closed for nearly 4 weeks, and then we made adjustments to both kitchens and to the operations generally, and obviously closed off seating, etc., and reintroduced home delivery and obviously drive-thrus where there were drive-thrus, and call and collect. So the business changed, and the business changed fairly radically because at the initial stages we obviously didn't allow any people into the shops at all, just for safety's sake. Now we have, and so it's evolving the whole time, and it's going to I suppose it's going to evolve quite further down the line. As I say, in the last 2 weeks, since eased down in easing off of the lockdown situation, I think there's a lot more positivity out there. There's a lot more movement out there. People are they're suffering from probably cabin fever, and they want to kind of get out and about again. And subject to the virus being contained, I think things look fairly positive for the future. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be great, because most businesses will, and I would include our own. Some businesses obviously have been affected a lot more than others. The tourist industry, and I'm based in the West here, has been decimated. Hotel industry pretty much across the country has been totally decimated. I can't see really any weddings taking place this year, unless they're family weddings and smaller events. Can't see an awful lot of Christmas parties. Business there was common to hotels right across the country, whether it was actually anniversaries, birthdays, funerals. That's going to be very much affected. However, as I say, in the last week and since the easing of the lockdown, there has been a noticeable increase in kind of booking and inquiries in relation to going for staycations, which is very positive, and which I think will continue over the next couple of weeks, because people are. It's interesting how people kind of, I think, are anxious to get out and about and just to get away from home for a while again, and renew energy, etc. And I was talking to a person in the garage business there recently, again in the Midlands, and he said when they opened last week, he had one of the best weeks he had in the last 2 years, because he said people had saved up while they were, in lockdown, and they hadn't spent money. They might have been saving for holidays or whatever, so they wanted to treat themselves, and I think that's a very positive. And he wasn't the only one that said that actually as well. So it's I think people have a bit of money to spend at the moment, and I think that whilst they will be very conscious of value, and value will become a very important aspect of the future in business, I think they are willing to spend it at the minute, and it's up to each, as well as business, to try and avail of that opportunity while it's there, because you will have in some business you have a novelty effect. It's very busy for the first week or two, and then it kind of settles down. In others, it's kind of a slow, gradual build up. But as I say, it's important to get the doors open as quickly as possible and adjust to the new conditions and the new tomorrow, as I say, in relation to doing business. And you can see online business mushroom during the first or during the lockdown. In actual fact, in the first 3 months of the year, I think we spent in Ireland 4.8 billion on online purchasing. Now, most of that probably went abroad, unfortunately. So I think it's going to be crucial that people and businesses help one another out in this situation, and support local is probably what I would be saying.
The main message. I know we were chatting earlier about, you know, the decimation of your plaza revenue, in some cases 70 to 80%, because not just were people not traveling to work, but no festivals, no tourism, no sports events, no concerts, and they would all probably visit one of your plazas on their way to or from those events. So that's going to be hard to replace that business. How do you see that panning out?
Oh, yeah, they were seriously affected because a lot of them would be based on kind of tourism and bus tours, etc. And you know, that just completely dried up. And of course, they are motorway facilities, so in some cases they had to stay open during the lockdown because for lorry drivers, etc. And obviously, the wage subsidy was a big help in that area, and anyone that I would advise very strongly that getting back into business to avail of that, because it's there. You're going to have a lot of overheads, kind of, whether it is PPE gear or whether it is signage, etc. to encounter when you get back into business, and whether it is if it's in restaurants or pubs and that, you have to have the social distancing and all that type of thing operate. So as I say, just on that note, to avail of that while it's available. But yeah, I mean, it was tough enough because you had to let go a lot of staff as well, because obviously you didn't need 120 staff or whatever to do 20% of the business. So, but we were probably lucky enough that between people who decided to avail of the COVID payment, and who were looking after maybe elderly parents, or who had somebody maybe in the house that wasn't either in the best of health or had some underlying illness, and then you had students who kind of were availing of this 350. So I won't go into that at the moment because it was controversial enough there in the last few weeks, but they availed of it, of course, as well. So whilst you were reducing your staff by probably 60 to 70%, it wasn't as difficult as it would have been if those COVID payment and the other incentives were there or other reasons to let them off, or for them to avail of the COVID. So yeah, but as I say, it's has improved very much in the last 3 weeks. It's probably first week of the easing of the lockdown, where it increased the distance to 5 kilometers. That helped at about 10% from where it was, which was low. But last week now and this week, as I say, it's improved again, and there's a bit of normality coming back to it, because, as I said already, Bernie, to you, that being in Portlaoise yesterday, and on the motorways you can see, and on the roadways and in the towns and cities you can see a lot more activity, a lot more traffic, and that's a good thing. Yeah. And as long as that continues, and that's the biggest challenge I suppose we face in business, is the uncertainty of the future. We don't know. You can't really plan anything definitely, because you don't know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year. Is there going to be high unemployment? Are there going to be is the virus going to come back? Is there's kind of a scare about that? So therefore, it's very hard to plan and very hard to know what's going to happen. But you have to take it one day at a time. And right this week, I would be a lot more optimistic than I was last week for reasons that is, there's more people about. I think they are anxious to spend money, and there's a more positive attitude on and feel out there on the ground as well. So yeah, but to I forget the question you asked me.
Well, look, no, that's fine. You're rolling a few of my questions into one answer, so that's great. You're ahead of me. But in terms, I'm sure you've had some of your staff working remotely, your management staff. This whole kind of conversation about remote working being the new normal. What's your feeling towards that? Do you think there will be a hybrid kind of scenario moving forward?
For some businesses, I think it will suit to a degree, but in our business, whether it's food related or tourist related or whatever, I don't think it suits. I think you have to have a feel of what's happening on the ground. You can't work remotely, even though we have some people who have worked remotely, but they're mainly office kind of staff, and most of them are coming back at this stage. So it depends on the business greatly. You know, for office businesses and that type of thing, that office-based business, that works pretty okay. I think I think it'll create a new opportunity maybe for hotels, etc., because they will have to meet up somewhere. It'll probably affect office space going forward in maybe the major cities, that there'll be a reduction. It won't be needed, so there'll be a big saving for companies there. But I think it will create an opportunity. They will need to meet up every so often, whether it is once a month or once every 2 weeks or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But for tourist-related business, you have to be there. You have to be on the ground. You have to feel what's happening. You have to be in touch with your customers and whether you call it emotional intelligence or emotional experience or not.
Yeah.
That's what's happening on the ground. You cannot run, I don't think, any kind of business, whether it's restaurants, pubs, touristy related, where you have social interchange from enough. So,
I suppose in Laois, we're hoping that there will be an uptake in the remote working. We have 6 state-of-the-art hubs throughout the county. So we're hoping there's a silver lining there for companies that will suit.
And I certainly think there will be. I certainly think that's going to I've always said Portlaoise is the ideal spot for meetings, because it's fairly it's central. It's very convenient for people from Limerick, Cork, even Dublin, if you can get them out of Dublin to go there, and from the west even. So, and the road system is good into it, and that's what's important.
Exactly.
So we would have seen from the hotel side of things that the meetings was a big part of the business there. Now those will change, and the new regulations will reduce the numbers attending, etc. So, but as I say, and it'll probably take a while for it to come back to where it was, if ever it does come back to that degree. But there are opportunities as well there to
jump onto. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, the hospitality sector has been devastated, and you yourself own 6 hotels, including the Collection in Portlaoise, we're all very familiar with. Yesterday, Fáilte Ireland brought out a very strict set of guidelines and cleaning regimes, really detailed. I'm sure that's going to really have an impact from a cost point of view for hotels reopening.
Oh yeah, as I said earlier on, I think there are going to be increased costs in relation to using whether it's PPE gear or sanitizers and all that, and staffing, kitting out staff, etc. But that's just the way it is, and designating certain areas and entrance and exit areas, etc., and markings on the signage and markings on the ground, etc. So it is an expensive aspect of the business, but it has to be done. It's as simple as that, and people's health is more important than anything else. And I think customers will need to have the comfort of knowing that the hotel or the restaurant or whatever is a safe environment to go to. I think where possible, outside seating, etc., is going to be hugely beneficial. I think that the training of the staff and obviously management and getting because customers will be very conscious of the conditions and of how much care is taken in relation to applying the rules and regulations, and that will that's word of mouth at the end of the day either makes or breaks your business. So that will help businesses to have those regulations and an environment where people feel safe. So yeah, it is, but I mean, let's be honest with you, I think I feel better about it, and even though they are fairly strict guidelines, but I feel that there's a better uptake. Like, phones weren't ringing up to about 2 weeks ago, and emails weren't being, or queries weren't coming in. Now in the last week, that they've kind of blossomed a bit, and there's still opportunity there. So and it will happen better than I would have thought it would. But you must still realize, there's probably 30% of the population that are over 70 that probably won't want to travel. As much as, say, the younger family age groups, and then with restrictions on gyms and on swimming pools, that will create its own kind of difficulty. I think, as far as I know, the pools are allowed to open pretty much sooner than the gyms are. But that's when people go on a holiday to a hotel. That's what kids want. Therefore, they want pools. So I think there'll be time restrictions and times for selected for booking times, basically for usage of pools. But as I say, that's good, because it means that there's business out there.
And I'm sure, in terms of reducing the 2 metre to 1 metre social distancing rule, would have a huge impact for the likes of the Collection here in Portlaoise, from a space point of view and capacity. Yeah,
it's something I've discussed with Michael Murphy there in the last couple of days, and how we'd address it. But it's going to make all the difference, really, because I don't think it would be viable in a lot of restaurants to reduce your seating or your social distancing to 2 meters, because really and truly you're losing probably 70 to 80% of your seating. So that's difficult to run a restaurant and that, because there's certain kind of amounts of people that need to be there to justify your existence in the first place. So if you have to reduce that by 50-60%, then the viability of the whole business is at stake. And so therefore there's no point in opening something that doesn't clear it. This year, it's pretty much about survival. Next year, I think it'll be about recovery. But I think that meter social distancing is a necessity for the hotel and catering industry.
Yeah, I feel it will come in the next few days. But in terms of, there's lots of business organisations that are out there: Retail Excellence, the Hotel Federation, the Construction Federation, Chambers Ireland, IBAC, and the likes. And it's great for small business in particular to have that support. For someone like yourself, who do you look to for advice during a crisis? Who do you bounce ideas off? Because you have such massive decisions to make. Or is it all gut feeling, Pat McDonagh, kind of, that you yourself know what to do, or you've an instinct, or do you look for kind of advice?
I look to God for a start, and look, as I say, it's important to you have a good team with you, and that's, there's very little cannot be achieved if you have a good team around you, and everyone brings their own advice and their own ability to the team decision. And so therefore, whether you're a small business with a few staff, it's listening to what they have to say, it's listening to what your customers have to say, and it's making a judgment of that. And you're not always going to get it right. I don't always get it right, but the important thing is you make the decision. And if it needs to be changed, then so be it. It can be changed as soon as you find it's the wrong decision. But 70% of the time, hopefully you're making the right decision, and that it's going to, again, it's going to help the business and you get the team behind you working on whatever it is and make it happen. And I think it's down to each individual. Anyone that's in business, Bernie, will realise that there's a lot of commitment, there's a lot of hard work. You know, there's a lot of self-sacrifice, and there's a lot of common sense needed. And so therefore it's the same. It's going to be no different in this situation. We haven't encountered it before. It's new to everyone. And as I said, the uncertainty is the difficult thing. But all you can do is work from week to week and month to month. And, you know, as I say, things are kind of are improving. And if we're lucky enough that this doesn't reoccur, I think, you know, as I say, you know, this year is about survival, is what I would feel. Next year is about recovery and hoping, you know, it'll take a few years to get back to where we were. But I think, you know, with the help of everyone and everybody working together, it makes it that much easier. Yeah. And whether it is local, staying local, or whether it is, you know, government help, whether it is the wage subsidy, you know, I think they have to address kind of the VAT issue. They have to address rates, etc. And you know, any other areas maybe that can be helped out, whether it's voucher systems or whatever. Then then that's, and I'm relating more so to the kind of the tourist sector than to retail. Retail, you know, has its own opportunities. I think, you know, again, people are out there. They have money in their pockets. I think they're looking for value for money, though, and I think that's what is going to be the key in the next couple of months and probably a couple of years even.
Yeah, I see Stephen Miller from Laois Today. He's put a question there into the chat, and he said, over the years you were the disruptor with Supermax, and he's just curious now, will other businesses be out there to disrupt your business? Because this is the time for disruption, I think, if ever there was a time. So there are probably people hot on your heels and looking for opportunities, possibly.
Yeah, but I mean, it's and that's just because things have changed. As I say, a lot of restaurants have got into home delivery. A lot of restaurants have kind of gone online, etc. And you know, you have the likes of Deliveroo and Just Eat and all that opening in the bigger, or operating in the bigger city centres and or bigger cities, and they are kind of aggregators, as they call them, to service any restaurant that's there.
Yeah.
But the big danger is with that is that, you know, that there's the margin that they take is might be taking away all the profit as well. So you have to be careful in that area. But look, of course, there are going to be people who are kind of either following our line of business, and what you have to be doing is trying to stay a step ahead the whole time, try to be better. There's constant improvement needed in every business, and our business is no different. You can always improve. There's always areas you can improve, and there's always areas to like, I mean, 90% of 100% of our business is eaten away from the premises now. That presents its own challenge because, you know, it's keeping the food quality right while it's going from the restaurant to the customer, and how long that takes, etc., has a big bearing on it. So there's a lot of challenges out there to the new way of doing business. But as I said, that's business. There's always going to be competition.
It's one step ahead. Yeah, exactly. And a second part to Stephen's question, he wonders, do you ever think how life would be different if you stayed teaching? Particularly now, when and now you wouldn't even have to mark leaving certs this year, or well, you would, I suppose, in a different way. But do you ever look back to those days and think, oh, maybe life would have been easier?
Look, as I say, well, I was lucky enough. I was a national teacher, and I was principal at the time. So now that sounds very how should I put it? Successful, but there was only 2 teachers in school, and the other teacher didn't want the job. So anyway, yeah, look, I think I'd probably be a better teacher now than I was back then, because at that stage, I probably went teaching because it was, my mother said, a good government pensionable job. And I'd always intended to do something else, but you learn through life an awful lot, and through experience an awful lot more, and so therefore you could apply that a lot better now to maybe what I did back 40 years ago.
Yeah, and I suppose this week now we've seen the shutters opening on a lot of the retailers, particularly down here in Portlaoise and right across the county, and it's great to see the customers coming back and the shopkeepers in their shops. And there is the talk of that revenge buying where people will come out and go a bit mad for a couple of weeks. And when things settle down and there might be a little bit of a slump, what words of wisdom or advice can you give to those retailers to keep going the next 6 months about survival and just hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is there any one piece of advice that they could take away from today?
Well, I suppose, first of all, to avail of the money if it's out there, and make the best of it, because we might need it come October, November when things get quiet. Secondly, I think avail of any other subsidies or whatever else you can get out there as well. And there's I know that there's grants available for smaller businesses from Enterprise Ireland or wherever else. So avail of whatever is available to you. But I think that as well, resilience is going to be hugely important. That you're going to have to kind of look at the business with a different light, see what's the strengths, see what's the weaknesses, work on maybe changing the business to some degree. If you aren't online, maybe there's something worth considering. Talk to other people in the business, because that's where you get most of the knowledge at the end of the day, and you'll learn from what other people are doing. And again, community effort, and as I say, the Chamber of Commerce and Laois County Council, etc., will advise and will come together and create kind of an environment that, let's make this happen together. And that's really, I suppose, all the advice you give, and use the team, the people that are working with you, as well, to kind of get a feel for where things are, get a feel where they are, and as I say, it's street fighting now as much as anything else that's going to get us through this.
So we'll move on to some good news, and you're going to tell us and give us an update on the Motorway Plaza, which looks really impressive. I saw it there myself this week, and that's come on in leaps and bounds since I was down here a few weeks ago. So do you want to just tell us how that's going and where you're at and an opening day maybe?
Yeah, well, we've scheduled the 31st of July, or the bank holiday weekend, to open, and that's our target, and that's what, with the help of God, we'll hit, and provided there's no other kind of unforeseen circumstance. But it was to be, as I say, the June bank holiday. They're just gone by, but obviously that was delayed. So yeah, we're delighted with the progress. We're making good progress on it. It's a big investment. It'll probably be in the region of 10 million when it's all finished and done. And we expected to obviously it won't do what we originally had planned it for to do, but it was a decision we had to make. Do you continue or do you slow down? And there's no such thing as, you're either going forwards or you're going backwards. So I suppose the decision was easy enough at the end of the day, because you had so much put into it that there was no going back at this stage. So yeah, so I'm delighted with as I say, with the decision and with the progress we're making on it, and we are now recruiting. We had a good few recruiting before this happened, and we are recruiting. So we're hoping, as I say, it'll be somewhere between 80 and 100 jobs that will be provided out there. But it's not just there alone. It's the cheese plant that's opening next door to us. from Glanbia, and there are other facilities on the way as well. There are other people looking at it, and I think, you know, it's good overall for Portlaoise, and it's good for Laois as a whole. And I think, you know, as you rightly said there, Bernie, earlier on, I think a lot of people probably will be working from home, you know, in jobs where they can work from home for the future. And, you know, it's going to be a huge benefit to probably rural towns generally around the country, but more so probably the likes of the bigger towns and the city or towns and the outskirts of Dublin. Because who wants to be driving to Dublin for an hour and a half or whatever in traffic each way every day? So 3 hours a day gone, multiplied by 5 days a week, 15 hours a week, if you can work from home and have that time for family or other, you know, other entertainment or enjoyment that you can have.
I suppose the upside to people working remotely, all the coffee shops and restaurants and plazas like your own will have an uptake, because all those people will want to eat lunch, and they might want to go out, get out of their house, you know, get a bit of fresh air and eat out and then go back. So there will be that upside too for the local communities.
There will, and even seeing the plazas already where, you know, people are meeting up. Say somebody might be in whatever Portlaoise and somebody might be in Limerick, and they might meet in Moneygall and have a chat and whatever, you know, and parents and grandparents. I see that a lot happening in the last few days, especially on Sunday. And they're still social distancing, but they're sitting outside. So yeah, it's, as I say, there will be opportunity at the end of this. You know, obviously there will be a few casualties as well along the way, but it's up to each individual to try and work their way through it. And you know, it's but the opportunity, whilst it's very hard to see it now, it will appear over the next couple of months and years.
Okay, we have another question there from Sinead Hanlon. She owns a coffee shop, the Cozy Cafe Mount Rath, and she's wondering about your new drone service. She said it looks amazing in Tip. So you did mention that earlier about using drones. Yeah,
it was on trial, or was to go on trial before this happened, and then it got delayed. So, but it worked out pretty well, because obviously with no traffic on the roads and more time on our hands, we could test it out. Now we're not the engineers behind it. Mana Drone Delivery, it's the company in Dublin, but it's the first, I think, that has done trialed home delivery by drone, and the technology, etc., in it is amazing, because I'm not a techie person, but you know, there's something like 10 cameras operate out of this drone, and it's able to pick the spot where you know you drop the delivery, and I suppose it's what would you call it, a twine or little rope drops it down into the location, into the backyard where you are, and away you go. So it's kind of futuristic in a lot of ways, and it was quite successful, as I say, in Moneygall, because even for a couple of people who were housebound and who wanted something from the chemist shop, was a way of delivering it to them as well. So it is and will be subject to obviously all the licenses and aviation rules. It will be something for the future.
So is it coming to Laois soon? Will we see drones
as I
flying
said,
around?
It was on a trial basis there. There's some difficulties and, you know, little things to be kind of sorted out on it in relation to then licenses, of course, all have to be acquired, etc. So I wouldn't expect it any time inside the next 12 months. I'd say it'll be 12 months to 2 years by the time, because there's so much technology involved in it, and it's all controlled from a computer room, and intend to have something like 20 or so drones controlled by one person, because it's all programmed, and when you put in the address and the code into the computer, it automatically goes there itself and does what it has to do, and off it goes again, you know. So it's futuristic technology.
But I suppose what seemed futuristic before is now the norm, so it's amazing how things kind of speed up. So I think that's it, Pat. We've really covered a lot there today, unless there's anything else I've forgotten and you'd like to add. for
No,
a few
as I say,
closing
I'm
words.
looking forward to opening in the we're getting the Portage Plaza kind of named. It was Midland Radio at the moment, and we have a competition out there for it because there was so much disagreement and among ourselves as to what it called. Do you call it the Laois Plaza, the Port Laois Plaza, the O'Moore Plaza, the Finn McCool Plaza? Somebody came up with the Queen's Plaza because it's Queen's County, and so we put it out as a competition on Midland Radio there, and there's €1,000 prize money in the sense of 500 for fuel and 500 for food, and so that's ongoing at the minute. So we're looking forward to it, and look, as I say, tomorrow brings a new dawn, and I suppose a lot of people would be a little bit worried and, needless to say, anxious about what it's going to bring. But as I say, what's the quotation? Is it the brightest dawn comes after the darkest hour, or something to that effect? There's as long as we stay healthy, and I think we were lucky in a lot of ways that it happened when it happened, because we got the best weather. Nature took a holiday, and really, as I say, I hadn't heard of cocoa as I live out the country for 5 or 6 years, and he was really in full bloom there for the last couple of weeks. And even animals, wild animals were. I was down in Monagal last week, and 2 squirrels hopped onto the ditch as I was passing them down there near Cloughjordan, and so there's a lot of good things have happened as well. And as I say, it will be a new challenge, but we will get through.
Yeah, I think we're probably seeing life in a different way, and appreciating more of what's around us. Like the squirrels were probably there, but you just notice them now. So it's
well, to be honest with you, I hadn't seen a squirrel, let's say, in 20 years. But anyway, it was good to see them. But even foxes, as I said, they're and that wildlife generally is much more prevalent at the moment. That you can hear the birds singing maybe a lot clearer, maybe because there's less noise out there, so you can hear them a lot earlier in the morning or whatever, So so it's there's a lot of good things that will come out of it as well.
Okay. Well, look, Pat, thanks a million for taking the time out today. I know you're very busy and you've so much on your plate with all your businesses, and really looking forward to the opening of the plaza in July, and delighted to hear the plans are still going ahead, and you will be employing 80 to 100 people. It's great to hear a story like that today, and we have to look forward now. The lockdown is over. It's now about the reopening of the economy, and hopefully we'll see you soon in Portlaoise, and hopefully you'll come up with a great name. Looking forward to hearing what that name for the plaza is.
And we'll be looking forward to the opening, obviously, in the coalition, so inside the next fortnight as well. So
absolutely, yeah.
So thanks for having me, and hope it was of some benefit to someone.
Absolutely, and people are thanking you for joining us today, and it was a great session and lots of great insights. So thanks, Pat, for that.
Thanks very much yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Bye now.